All right, welcome to Henderson Rotary. We will start the way we always do with our four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And for our club, is it fun? Absolutely. Okay, Kyle, do you care to lead us in prayer, please?
Sure. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you today with thanks for our many blessings and the ability to still gather as a civic club in our fine community. We pray for those impacted by the pandemic and those who are struggling or grieving, and ask for your continued guidance to help us make a positive impact in our community and world, and to amplify our efforts to help those less fortunate than us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Lori, do you have a trivia question for us today?
I do. Keeping with the whole Halloween theme. I think this one's kind of dumb, but we'll see if somebody gets it. Everybody unmute yourselves and scream out the answers. Why did women look in mirrors while walking downstairs at midnight on Halloween?
Say that again. Why did women
look in mirrors while walking downstairs at midnight on Halloween? So I think it should be, I didn't write this, I'm reading this, but I think it says, why do women? But I don't know for sure. It's really dumb.
I don't know. Anybody?
Takers to see their boyfriends. I don't know if they're supposed to be dead and gone. I don't know. It's the internet's Halloween trivia question. Don't know.
All right. Well, you just got a lot of dollars today. Wonderful. Okay. Alex, do you want to introduce our member spotlight?
Sure. Good afternoon, President Amber, fellow Rotarians. We're continuing on with our member spotlights to get to know each other just a little bit better as a club. And today we have with us one of our great Rotarians and a fellow board member as well, Mr. Nick Witt. So Nick, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. It's going to be tough to follow up that joke or trivia question, whatever that was. It looks like we got a packed crowd too, which is nice. I think I know pretty much almost everybody on here, but appreciate the chance to share a little bit more about myself. And I think it's a good idea what we're trying to do and highlighting different members every week. I know it's been hard to stay connected. Hopefully, we can get past this soon, but it is nice to be able to learn more about some people in the club that maybe we don't know quite as much about as we thought we did. But I'm a trust officer at Old National in Evansville. And I do a lot of trust and estate administration work there. I grew up in Henderson, moved away for undergrad at the University of Kentucky, and then law school at the University of Louisville. I moved back to Henderson in 2015. I worked at Field and Main Bank for a couple years before moving over to Old National Bank about two and a half years ago. So I'm an attorney licensed in Kentucky. And I'm on the boards of a couple of nonprofits around town, obviously including Rotary, and try to be active in any way possible. I am married, actually neighbors across the street from Lori, and we have two daughters. One's age 7, and one is 7 months old. So they've been keeping us pretty busy and working from home while the 7-year-old has second grade online. School and whatnot has been somewhat of an adventure, but it's been, I think in a lot of ways it's been nice to be able to share time with them in ways that maybe we wouldn't, or I wouldn't otherwise have a chance to. And so I joined Rotary in 2015. Don Kelsey invited me as a guest. I've known Don, I guess, since I was a baby. My parents have always gone to church with them. So as far as I can remember, I think Dawn used to be my Sunday school teacher dating way back. And so she invited me, and I thought it was a good group of people. And, I think the work that we do in the community is pretty valuable. And, I've enjoyed being a member, and certainly serving on the board. I think you get a new appreciation for a lot of the work that goes into running Rotary and running the events we have, and the charitable organizations that we contribute to and whatnot. It's just appreciative of everybody in the club and getting to know everybody. So again, thanks for the chance to share a little more about myself.
Absolutely. And thank you. And looks like your 5 years are coming up and you've agreed to join the board for 2 more years. So that's great
yeah.
news. Thank you.
You're really been,
Thank you.
God, yeah, I didn't realize it almost been 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
time
DAC
flies.
TV stated. It goes quick. I agree.
No, yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. Cause that is right. But yeah, I didn't realize it's been 5 years, but I'm about to invite my wife in the room actually, because I told her something about spooky tales or something like that. And she loves this stuff. So she's pretty pumped about it.
That's awesome. Well, good. Thank you very much, Nick.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, we'll go on with a few another announcements. As some of you may know that Golden Corral is going to be closing for 90 days. So we're doing our last meal for at least 90 days, if not longer, depending on what Golden Corral does. So for November, we are doing Red Banks. We had 105 meals delivered today. Thank you, Lori, for getting that set up, and Dawn for helping as well. So we went ahead and delivered those early, and we'll keep you updated if anything changes. Our next is, this is the last week, we'll be taking donations for our September Operation Warm. We're doing really good with the donations that we received, and this will be the last week if you want to send a check to the PO box. We are looking at ways to see if we can get some online donations. So that'll be brought up on the November board meeting, and we'll keep you updated if, and we'll have a link on our Facebook or our website. October, our month of service, October, will be tomorrow. All of our 80 slots for the drive-in movie has been sold out. And thank you for those who are going to help with parking. It's going to be myself and Lori and Dawn, Holly Melton, and Susan Blanford. So we're all going to be there taking up a small collection and helping park for our October month of service event, the drive-in movie. Just a couple upcoming programs. Next week we have Uplift, then we have Volunteer Information Center on the 12th, and the 19th, a Chamber Community Conversation. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can have our guest take over. Hi, Tom Jake, how are you? I think you're muted.
There you go.
Got me on there now?
Yes.
All
And
right.
our fellow Rotarian Jennifer is there helping get him set up. He's got a few videos for us to see.
You have to excuse me. This is my very first ever Zoom. So I'll probably turn everything off in mid-sentence somewhere. So hopefully not.
That's all right.
I'm going to be doing talks about spooks and legends here in Henderson. And if I can get out, I was going to start with an actual video of a ghost that was filmed in 2018 by a family named Carter. Rick and Pamela Carter had spotted this gentleman walking up and down the road around the streets up around their house for the last couple of days. And it was quite late at night one night, and their security cameras caught this ghost. So it was on the news. I can't prove it or not, but am I not sharing?
I'm gonna share it now. She has turned her share on.
Okay, so we're doing something.
Okay.
All right.
Let me
Where's my
move this out of the way here. Okay.
ghost disappearing? We're going to put this one right here. Now, hopefully everybody can see this. It's loading. It was a cool, damp evening and cold and dark evening for this ghost to come through. I have to push that little thing right there.
I think it should come up.
Here we go. Can we make it full screen or what?
Can you all see that there's a video
Can you see,
getting ready to start?
can you see there's a video getting ready to start?
Okay.
Yes, we see it.
All right. Here we go. I've done this thing in regular speed. In slow motion. Here comes Phil. Watch this. Here comes in slow motion. Then he walked like a military man. Spotted him walking up and down the street. Park. And I've got the young lady here helping me, so. All right. Okay, there's your first experience with a video of an actual ghost here in Henderson, Kentucky. We'll be talking about ghosts in several buildings here in town. We'll be talking a little bit about orbs. Is everybody familiar with orbs? You should nod your head yes or no, I guess. Anyway, we've got orbs around. I was also going to show you a video of one of the houses here in town. We have an elderly gentleman. He's passed on since this video took place, and it's not a real good video, but his grandson was helping him move out. It's an old house that was originally a mansion, and they turned it into a hospital during the Civil War. And it's evidently full of ghosts because people, when this all started happening, a lot of the tenants started moving out, and they mostly were elderly tenants who didn't believe in ghosts. So I'm going to try to play this one real quick for you. Hopefully we can get this done. I'll be doing one more of it.
Just
Double click. All right, we'll see how this one's a little bit longer, and it's kind of hard to see, but it's an elderly gentleman and his grandson, and the old gentleman is hard of hearing, but he's telling his story. He's telling about the ghosts that were there. And this was on one of the local internet programs here. You can see it?
Yep.
Okay. I hope everybody can see this. That's the old building. Originally, it had a big, huge porch around the front of it. And,
show me where those ghosts was at. Show me where you was at and those ghosts. Ghosts. Where were they at in there? Where were they at? Were you laying in bed? Where were they at? In here? They were there? Ghosts. Where were they at? Where they show up at? Where they at? Ghosts. Where those ghosts show up at? Oh. You didn't hear me, did you? Right here? Oh, no, it's right here. And maybe another, get right here. That's where I seen the girl. That little girl gets here every night. Sometimes she has a little doll with her. Yeah? Because one night I did like that. She did like that. And we got to doing that. And she got to shaking that doll at me. And I raised up and she disappeared. And sometimes there'd be another woman. And she'd be holding this little girl, you know, and they close her eyes like they're going to sleep. And I'd be like that, and they disappear. What were they wearing? What were they wearing? They disappear and stay there, I guess. I mean, what kind of clothes they have on? Well, old-timey white dresses to the ground and a big white bonnet, had it tied around her chin. You see him? Yeah. An old-timey. Like a nurse or something? Yeah. And she was standing right here, like this. And I kept looking at her, and I saw her raise up, and she just disappeared. And that man had on black clothes, black stovepipe hat, had beard, you know, out here. And he was standing there looking at me. And I said, hi. He turned around like this and walked through. When he got right there, he just disappeared. Yeah. He said one of them, I've seen several different the way he was dressed, and some of his face was flesh-like and the eyes was red. Yeah. Some young people, some other people. They were before your time though, weren't they? I imagine so. I mean, dressed before you. I don't know where that picture or not, but then I find it. Used to be a long porch all the way across out there.
Look, there's a lady on the porch with a young lady that looks like she's holding a dog.
All of them wore long dress, clean to the floor. Well, you see old westerns. Yeah. They all had bonnets on, but they tore that porch down. Right. Still had a picture of it. You got your telephone, right? Yeah. I'm behind you, go on. Yeah.
Okay, just to let you know that there were several residents all leaving at the same time because they all started seeing ghosts about the same time. And I don't know if you heard me or not, but when you showed that building and showed that porch, there was a lady standing on the left-hand end of the group of people there. And beside her was a young lady holding a doll. And that's what he was talking about. There was a woman that came, and sometimes she'd have a little girl with her. Well, the little girl came all the time, and sometimes she had a doll. We did that one, the community depot room. We did that one a couple of years ago with one of our tours. We have got some areas around town that have orbs, and the old depot during its construction phase, I had a very good friend of mine come to my office and just lay a bunch of pictures down in front of me and say, what do you think of these, Tom? And I started looking at them, and about the third or fourth picture, there was an orb down in the basement. The basement, he was looking through the top floor. There's a big hole in the floor, and he's shooting right straight down into the basement. And there was an orb in there. And then the next picture was from a different angle, and the orb was in a different place. So there was an orb. I don't know if you're familiar with orbs, but they small dots or sometimes large dots that float around, and they're supposed to be spirits. Now, 99% of those are considered to be just dust. I worked out at the Audubon State Park for a while and kind of have free access out there. And they were telling me about a ghostly thing showing. So I went out and checked the security cameras, and I caught an orb. Now, when we were doing this, I went out after work and met with one of the rangers, and we went in after work and turned the lights out so we could get better pictures. I had asked if they had cleaned the cameras, and I was assured that they had. Well, we went in and I started checking, and there's two cameras within 4 or 5 feet of each other, and they had cleaned one, but it wasn't the proper one. The one that was videoing had never been cleaned. And when we got in there and started looking at it, we saw this ghost going back and forth across the room every once in a while. And when we got the lights all out and got it tuned up and everything, it turned out to be nothing but a cobweb. So that ghost went down the drain. But the orbs were in there. And when I cleaned that camera, there were hundreds and hundreds of orbs around. Well, all it was just dust. And that's basically what most people think orbs are. But there's orbs and there's orbs. Okay. A real orb has a mind of its own and goes everywhere else. Now I have one more video, and I won't bug you anymore with these videos, but this video I took off the security cameras at John James Audubon State Park in the museum, and it shows an orb. And I've done it as an orb, and I've done it as in slow motion and then up close. I don't know if I can point with this thing, but I'm going to give it a try with the arrow here. And this young lady's going to help me out, but I'm going to show you the orbs here, and then we'll get away from the things and we'll just do some talking here. But I'm real proud of this because I caught an orb. And that to me was quite exciting. And the interesting thing on it, when it's going in fast motion, if you pay a lot of attention, this orb comes around. I'll kind of keep an arrow on it if I can keep up with it. But when it finally comes out from hiding, it goes into kind of a hiding spot, and then it comes out and it dissipates. And I've never seen or heard of an orb that just came out. It came down, and when it started out like a dot, like a marble size. And by the time it got through, it was about the size of a softball. And then when it came out from behind a wall, it was more like a grapefruit. And if you look at it, I pulled it up and looked at it real close, and it like had a square in it, but it was dissipating. And the whole thing just dissipated and just went away. And you'll see the floor lighten up, and the whole area where it was at, the whole thing lightens up and just goes away. So I'm going to try to get this thing going. She comes over, and the young lady comes over, pushes all kinds of buttons. I don't know what's going on. So we'll see what happens here. Okay. Now I can point with this, can't I? All right. Has it started? All right. Come on, baby. It should be going. It's quick. Here we go. It'll be a quick little marble size right down through there. Oh, it's already gone. We missed it. Let me back it up. You see it go across the top up there? I'm going to back it up again. I keep missing it here. All right, it'll come up right up in here. There it goes. Hopefully everybody saw that. Now it's going to be in slow motion, and you'll be able to better see it. It'll come down through here, marble size. And it'll come up, and you see there's people in the museum. They didn't see it. There it goes across the top. Boom. Then I've got a close-up of it going a little bit closer here. It'll show a close-up version. And you'll be able to see this dot come down this way and then disappear behind here and then come up here. Yep, there it went. I hope everybody saw that. I think this is about over close up. Let's see what we got here. Okay, here we go. You'll see the little dot come down. There it goes. It curves in, and it comes up to the wall, goes over the top, comes down the wall, goes down the side, and across the top there. So there you've seen an actual orb from the park. That's totally different than all the other orbs that I saw out there. The others were obviously dust, and you can see a little bit of dust flying around over here on the left-hand side. There's one that'll come here shortly. It'll come, boom, right there. That's just dust. It's just fuzzy stuff, but that one was an orb. So, okay, how do I get out of this? Okay. Most of my stories are going to be at the elm. Is everybody familiar with the building, the Elms, Brian Glick's store here in town? Does everybody know Brian Glick? Do you? Okay, I see a lot of heads. Well, I'm convinced that Brian is a conduit. When he first years ago, when he was here, he had an older house here in town, and it was one with the old windows that open up over the doors, you know, and he had a case where he was having a dance with his daughter, his 18-year-old daughter. It was like a prom dance, and he was going to dance with his daughter. So they studied for about 2 or 3 weeks. They took lessons. They came out there and they danced, and they did a real good job of their dancing with his daughter. He danced for the whole thing, and they did an excellent job. His wife was videotaping that, and when they looked at the video, an orb came down and danced with them the whole dance. And it turned out that about 2 weeks before this thing happened, or a month before this happened, his wife's grandmother had died, and his wife's grandmother was a dancer. She did square dancing, she did line dancing, she did all kinds of different dance. She loved dancing, and here father and daughter are doing a dance, and an orb came down and literally just came down. And when they came out, danced with them the whole dance, and when it's done, they disappeared. So that was one of his first experiences. Another experience in that house was his father-in-law passed away, and his father-in-law at the funeral, there was a photo of his father-in-law in a full military uniform, and Brian and his wife brought that home. They took it into that old house. They took it through the living room into the dining room, and they put it on top of a pantry, up on a shelf, a cabinet, and they placed it up there, a place of honor. And 2 or 3 days later, they came home, and when they opened the front door, there was a balloon sitting there. It was just hanging in the air, just floating, a balloon. And as they came in, the door opened. The wind didn't blow it anywhere. It just sat there where it was supposed to be, where it sat. It floated up to the ceiling, and it floated into the living room, from the foyer into the living room. And it floated around in the living room for a few minutes. And then it went down, it had to come down, and it went in through a door into the dining room. And Brian says, "Bud, if that is you, rest that balloon on your photograph." And that balloon went up and went across the ceiling along one wall, and it came right over that cabinet and floated right down and rested right on top of that photograph. So Brian had a visit from his father-in-law on the other side. A lot of his stuff happened in the Elms. Has anybody ever been in the Elms? It's yeah, all right. Well, I've been in there, and I got the privilege of going upstairs by myself, and I got the hairs on the back of my neck stuck out. I didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, but it just gave me the creeps. Most of the things that I'm going to tell you now happened in that building. When they first started there, and they were cleaning and doing all the work in that building, a lot of times they would come along, and they would, at nighttime, they would lock up, they'd turn the lights out, and they'd just stand there and listen. And they said the place was full of creaks and groans and all kinds of little noises going on. So after a while, they got the impression that, yeah, this thing's got ghosts in it. They didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, but just the rattles and stuff like that. One day he was up there working. His wife is out of town, and he was up there in the 3rd floor working, and he couldn't see very well. And there was a fluorescent light up there that never worked. He changed the bulbs, he changed the ballast, he did everything he could to get that light to work, and it just wouldn't work. So he was up there, and it was kind of dark where he was working. He was working on some pipes and things. And finally, he just said, let me see if I can quote this thing. He says, "If someone could turn on this light for me, it would be great." And about that time, that light started going bzzz, like this, and it flickered a few times and it just came on. And he said, well, thank you. Thank you very much. And he did his work. And then when he was all finished doing his work, he said, okay, I'm done. You can turn the light off. And it went off just like that. Now, this happened 3 times, 3 days in a row. And then his wife came home and suggested we videotape this. And he set up the camera and everything. And of course, it didn't happen. And it never has happened since. So I guess the ghost just didn't want to be videoed on this thing, but it happened 3 times in a row, according to Brian. So that building was like 150 feet long. I don't know how wide it is, but it's quite lengthy. And one day they were working up there, and his wife was at one end, back in the back part of the building, and he was at the front end, and they were just working along. And all of a sudden, Brian's wife said, "What?" And he said, "What?" He said, and she says, "Well, someone just said my name here." And he says, "It wasn't me. I didn't say anything." And she said, "Well, somebody said something in my ear." And so she called her name in her ear. So she heard somebody's name in her ear. And that spooked her out for quite a while. Now, one of my favorite stories at this place is they were upstairs. Both of them were upstairs. And they were working. There's nobody else in the store. It was all locked up. And they heard this crash downstairs. And when they went down, there was an area down there. It was actually nothing there, hardly anything in this area. And about there's a set of bookcases over on one side and a set of bookcases over on the other side. And they were like about 15, 16 feet apart. And in between them, sitting on the floor, was a book. And that book came from one of the cases on one side. And then there was another book from the other side sitting on top of that. Now, that book was an old book, and it had been stored in a Ziploc bag. It was out of the Ziploc bag. The Ziploc bag was laying on the bottom book. The old book was laying on top of that. And on top of the whole thing was a sword. Now, the sword was on a hook. That hook was fairly deep, and the only way you could get that sword off was to pull it up this way and lift it. But that sword was off of that hook and laying across the books. And nobody knows how that could possibly happen. But he came down, and there they were, sitting on the floor in that order. So the ghosts were telling him pulling a little joke on him, I guess. But I always get kind of chills on that one. I like that one so much. One day, he and his wife were working upstairs, and they had been on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks. And they came back up, and they were going to work, and they heard heavy footsteps coming up the steps. Now, the only one that has a key to the place, other than Brian and his wife, is his son. And they figured it was his son. They figured his son and a couple of his friends were coming up the steps because they were heavy footsteps. And he turned around expecting to see his son, and nothing showed up. So he waited a few seconds, and he went over to the stairs and looked down. There was nothing there. Absolutely nothing. So he went down to the second story, and he checked all down in there, and there was nothing. And then he went down in the basement, and he checked down there, and there was nothing there. So he came back upstairs and told his wife that nothing happened. I've got to get her words exactly. She says, "So I guess you missed us." He's talking to the ghost. And I said, "I guess you missed us." And a few seconds later, a big old deep voice says, "No." So they've actually talked to the things. So they had a psychic medium come in one time and just go through that. If you got a place like that, you've got to pull in a psychic medium. And the psychic medium went through and pretty well confirmed that the place was full of energies, lots of different people in there. He actually was up on the 3rd floor, and he picked out 2 young boys, and one had a candle and one had a light bulb. And they assumed that that's to show the time period. But these boys were up there, and they were totally unconscious, evidently totally unconscious of each other. But he found a couple of young boys up there with walking around, spooks, ghosts, this psychic medium said. And he says one of them went to the window and made a signal. Now, you know the building downtown has been torn down, that collapsed and tore down. It used to be an old Staples. He said there was a ghost over there, and they were signaling each other. And he says it was well after slavery, so it couldn't have anything to do with slavery. So he thought it was some kind of a thing for probation, saying during probation, saying the coast is clear, you can do it. But he saw the psychic medium saw these guys doing that. When they went back downstairs and they were walking around down in the base, on the main floor, he looked at a doll and he says, "That doll moves, doesn't it?" And Brian said, yeah, I'll come in, it'll be here. Next time I'll come in, it'll be over there. And so it moves around. So the psychic nailed that one. And Brian confirmed it, said, yeah, that doll moves. Several weeks after the psychic left, a friend of his came in, and she was an empath. She claims to be an empath. I presume she is. And she walked in, and she wasn't in there 5 minutes when she saw that doll. And she says, Brian, you've got to get rid of that doll. That doll is evil. When I look at it, I actually feel nauseous. You've got to get rid of that doll. And she said, in fact, I'm leaving, and I'm not coming back until you get rid of it. So Brian got rid of it. And I forgot to ask him how he got rid of it. We got talking about other things. But I imagine he threw it in the dumpster or maybe burned it or something. I hope he burned it. But she said it was just full of evil, and she just wouldn't come back in. And it's funny that two different people picked out that doll. And so the doll thing went away. Let's see what else we've got here. I had one that I skipped over. I'm going to go back to it. Brian's grandfather, one of his relatives passed away, and his grandmother used to tell Brian that people, when they pass away, sometimes they come back as butterflies. Now, Brian was working in his garden, and a butterfly came and landed right up on his shoulder, and he just shooed it away. And the butterfly flew away, and then it came back and landed on his shoulder again. And this butterfly kept landing on Brian's shoulder over and over again. Finally, Brian just shooed it away and got in the house real quick, and that's the only way he could get away from that butterfly. But he thinks that butterfly was his grandmother or grandfather came to visit him. Let me see what else I've got here. Got the butterfly, got the balloon, did the orbs, yums. All right. Let me tell you about wolves. Wolves, the old wolf, I think everybody knows where Wolves is, on First and Green Street there. When that was the last time it was open, they had hired a young man, I think he was an officer, to be security. He would come in at night and make sure everything was clear and doing okay. And they had security cameras in there. And this is a young man. He's athletic, well built, and not very talkative, but he was a young man. He did all kinds of things like this as second jobs. So he was doing security, and they had him on security camera, and he was actually walking out of the building, and the camera had him from the side. And as he's walking along like that, all of a sudden he just went wham, it just stopped like there was a wall there, boom, and he bounced back. And he reached up and he went like this with his hands, and they didn't go anywhere. They just went to a certain spot and stopped. And so there was evidently some kind of an invisible wall there. And so he backed up and he's kind of looking at it. And finally he stuck his hand in like this. He just stuck it in, and it went through where the wall was. And he just, okay, it's open. And he just walked through it and walked out. He never made a report about that. He never said a word about it, but they caught him on video. So they got this guy walking into an invisible wall. So there's evidently some kind of a spooky thing inside wolves. We also have Lee's Barbershop. Does everybody know where Lee's Barbershop is up on 2nd Street? I've been in there. I went in there to get haircuts. I found out about this. Evidently, that place is really haunted downstairs. I went down the basement and I took my camera and I filmed down there for about 30 minutes and never felt query or I never felt anything, and I didn't see anything on any of my videos. But the story is, and there is a door out that goes out, there's stairs in the basement that goes right up to a door that goes right out into the backyard. And there's stairs that go up into the barber shop. They had cleaners that would come in and go down into the basement and pick up the dirty laundry. They pick up the dirty towels and the dirty aprons, and they take them over and they clean them. Now, these guys liked Lee's because they could come in early and they would start their deliveries like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And they had a key to that door. So they could come in and make their delivery and be on their way. And that was one delivery down for the day. They did that for about 2 or 3 months. And then they just they came to us and said, we're not going down there anymore. We have to pick up the laundry upstairs. We're not going down in that basement anymore. And the guy asked why. He says, because it's too darn creepy. It's creepy down there and it bothers us. So nobody wants to go down there. In the evenings when Lee stayed up there, or one time when his wife came in and was doing hair for a friend, they were in there and all of a sudden the pipes started banging and all kinds of knocking and groaning and noises coming out of there, really loud, really very, very loud noises. And so they know something's happening down there. They also have dogs. If you've ever been in there, they've got a couple of dogs that walk around in there all the time. And these dogs are very friendly. The kids come in, they've got a dog to pet. People, I had one climb up in my lap one time. I thought it liked me, but it was just found a nice warm spot because it was a cold day. But I had a little dog to pet for a while. Those dogs have free reign. They can go anywhere in that house they want, and they go upstairs, they go all around in that place, and they have free reign. But neither one of the dogs have ever gone down in that basement. They open the door, they try to get them to go down in the basement, the dogs don't do it. They pick them up to take them down there, the dogs start whining and kicking and fighting, and they will not go down in that basement. So whatever's down there scares the dogs, and it scared the laundryman. So I've been out there and I've never heard anything, but I tried. But they say it happens quite often. There's a lot of noise and stuff going on. I think that's about the extent of my ghost stories. If you've got any questions, I can maybe answer. I don't know how long I've been going. Right about on time, huh? About 30 minutes, that's what they said. So, and I talked kind of fast. I should have talked a little slower that way. That way I could got more time in. But oh, I forgot to tell you real quick. When Brian was working at the Soper, before he had the Elms, he had a restaurant in the Soper Hotel. And he had been warned about the little girl. And one night he was the last person in the whole building, and he was going to the door, getting ready to go out. And he says, and he claims he heard very clearly a little girl just saying hello. And evidently that's all she ever says to anybody. She just says hello, and several people have heard her that way. He's told another story about he was getting ready to go into the kitchen, and when he was headed for the kitchen, they had swinging doors. And when he was getting like 10, 15 feet from those doors, all of a sudden everybody in the kitchen came running out. They just come running out. They were terrified. And he asked what happened. And evidently a big basketball-sized ball of light went through the swinging doors, and they literally went like this. The people in the kitchen said it kicked the doors open and went all the way straight across the kitchen. Boy, that goes right into your face, doesn't it? Went right straight across, all the way across the kitchen, and it terrified everybody, and they just ran and left. So there's a ghost in the Soper too. So there's several other buildings around town that got ghosts, and we're investigating. So okay, I think I spent my time on this thing. So I've told you a few stories about the ghosts. We've done some of these in our tours. Every year we have a Spooks and Legends tour. We have a Fernwood Cemetery tour. We do tours every first Saturday of the month there in the summer. Obviously, we're not doing them this year because of the COVID thing. And we are no longer in the community depot room. We've been transferred over to the library. We're doing basically the same thing we did at the community room. I don't know if any of you ever got to go on any of our tours, but we have tours about, all throughout the summer. So, and we're finding that we're getting quite a few older folks now with walkers and that type of thing. So we're having more and more Facebook presentations too, especially during the hot months. So when we get rolling next year, we'll start sending out our notices, and it'll be in the paper if we still have a paper. And we'll look forward to seeing all you folks come to some of our tours. So we do history, mostly history, but we'll get into the spook stuff again next year. We have a really great tour where we visit the restaurants and we get a lot of free food. It's good stuff. So you need to come out and visit us when we have the tours. And come out and visit us. Anyway, we'll be getting our displays up here at the library here shortly. So I appreciate you taking the time to let me come in here and talk to you. I enjoyed it. And ghost stories are my specialty. I like them ghost stories. And that might not be my specialty, but I enjoy telling them. So, okay, I'm done.
Are there any questions before we leave?
I have a quick question, if we got a minute.
Sure.
Tom, have you done any research on those other buildings that kind of like you did with your first story there, where you had some old pictures and drew the connections between maybe some of those events that at Brian's building? I know that building has a ton of history, being Norris and being, a buggy manufacturing shop and then a hardware store. I worked there for about 3 years when Brent O'Daniel operated the hardware store in high school, and we had a lot of spooky encounters and noises like you talked about, footsteps above you, and you come around the corner and you go, I thought you were upstairs. And they say, no, I've been down here the whole time. And, we would try to use a buddy system, not to go too far on your own, mainly because you didn't want to get stuck on the elevator, but, just because you're afraid of what you might run into. So I didn't know if you had any historical connections you'd uncovered with that building yet or anything.
We have, we've not done any research. We probably should. It's a good spot to do some research. We've just been flabbergasted with Brian's stories. I mean, we bring him out every year and set him out front, and we give away candy corn and stuff like that. And he comes out and tells us at least 2 or 3 stories every year, and they're always different. And we need to get in there and actually, I'm glad you can kind of confirm that place is full of spooky things. He said at night, he'll be upstairs and they'll hear furniture being moved. They'll hear chains dragging across the floor, what sounds like chains dragging. There's all the time. And like I said, I went in there and I got the hair up on the back of my neck, but I didn't see anything. So,
yeah, I'm not surprised by some of those stories. I think if, you are kind of into maybe some of the historical things, a lot of activity went on in that building that might explain some of those noises. You never know.
We need to check that out. Yeah, that's a good point. We'll start doing a little research, see the previous owners, and there's been a lot. So we'll go over to talk to the Norrises and see if they got they might know some stuff. So it's a good point. We'll try that. Anything else?
I have one question before we leave. You mentioned an empath. What's an empath or empath or?
Empath is a person who is sensitive to psychic phenomena.
Okay.
They can feel things. My first experience with one of those was actually in San Diego. We had the oldest brick structure in San Diego called the Thomas Whaley House, and there was an empath that went in there and was telling about the ghost. And I talked to the police that used to patrol that area. This was a very old historical house. It was used as a theater. It was used as a courthouse, a granary. They hung a guy in there, and an empath went in and would go through there and tell about all kinds of things. That's my first experience with an empath. I will tell you that I went upstairs one time with a friend and his girlfriend. We were going up the steps, and we waited until everything was locked. All the doors were locked, all the shutters were closed, and the windows were down and locked. And we were walking up those back steps, and that was back when the girls had the real long hair. And I didn't feel anything, and my friend didn't feel anything, but the hair on his girlfriend just blew out, just all of a sudden, like blew out behind her like that. And when we got upstairs, there was an area I just could not go to. I got to a certain point and said, no, I'm not going there. Just like hitting a blank wall. I'm not going any further. I'm not going in there. And I talked to a cop. It was a funny thing. We talked to a cop one time. And he says, yeah, every once in a while the shutters fly open, the windows fly open, the music on the music box plays. We have to go in and check it out. And I went in. He says, I went in there one time and we were checking it all out. And I was upstairs in the master bedroom, and I opened the door and there was a mannequin in there. And he says, it scared me so bad I had to go home and change my uniform. He said, I really messed up my uniform. He said, I had to run. But he was a regular. He went into that place all the time. It happened every once in a while. That's San Diego. It's not here. So, but that was my first experience with an empath. I was able to walk through with an empath, and she was telling us about this. And says this is horrible here and horrible there, and it's bad, bad, bad. No, this was not bad. The psychic guy says that the ghosts in the elms like Brian and his wife, like him very much, and they're very happy with what Brian's doing, and they're actually protective of him. So he's got friendly ghosts. So that's good to have. Always good to have friendly ghosts. Anything else?
Any other questions?
You be careful. Sometimes you can ask me a question. I can talk for 45 minutes. So
Well, I tell you what, I have really enjoyed your stories. This is a perfect stories for this time of year. And we thank you very much for having your first Zoom meeting with us.
Well, thank you very much for asking.
Absolutely. And this was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Hope you enjoyed.
Yes. Okay. We'll see everybody next week. Bye, everyone. Thank you.